All right. The New Year's is coming up in about 2 days, and with New Year's comes New Year's resolutions. And it's usually a good time to set goals for the year. We usually write training kinda based around the year starting in January. Kinda, not really.
Not really.
But we like to set goals for the year. Having said that, John, what are your goals for 2024 training
I
wise?
Training goals, yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, there's a lot of goals, but I think the training ones are probably the ones that people care about. So, for me personally, this year, I don't wanna take disrespect, so my goal is to be an absolute monstrosity in terms of jumping off 1 foot. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, that's always the goal. But, more specifically, I wanna get back to being my best self off 1 foot. I think, the hiatus that I kind of took for 2 foot definitely was a little bit distracting. And maybe this is a better time to review last year because I think that
Yeah,
we have all the data for the last year.
yeah,
So one big thing was the change in the business. Moving away from high ticket. We didn't want you guys who are listening to this to have to pay an arm and a leg for the best coaching in the world. And I think I'm really proud of where we're at with that. So thank you guys for all trusting us with your training and for believing in us and letting us guide you if you guys are on the training. And if you're not, remember it used to be very expensive, and now you still get an awesome service for probably the best price possible. Um, so that's one thing I think this year has been really fulfilling is just getting back to a place where the business really aligns with my personal kind of convictions. That's been really fulfilling for me, and I hope it has for you as well. And so that's one big thing, and I think that even though I didn't have my best year of jumping, I think that in terms of the focus on coaching, it's been the most fruitful year for me. All the guys hitting 50-inch verticals that we had this year, being better about staying in touch with my elite guys. Kind of, I would say, thinning the herd when it comes to coaching those elite guys has been good for me so that I can really just focus on the ones that I know are going to put the work in and put the time in and things like that. So, guys like you, Tony, Donovan, Mason, Travis, Fabian, Joe Delgado, those are the ones off the top of my head that, I kind of think of. So in that regard, I've been really satisfied with how things have been going. I'm really excited for this upcoming year for those guys. I think that they're all going to be their best selves. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
really genuinely believe that. So that's something I'm looking forward to in 2025. And then in terms of the actual training and, my personal goals and how I'm going to achieve that, it's really just to not get too distracted. I think as you and I have gotten older and we've spent more time trying to coach and less time on our own individual, progressions. And it's not that we don't focus on it, but it's just that the nature of what we're doing requires us to put more time and effort into, coaching. So this year my goal is to big goal is just to be more consistent on my general days to be able to achieve the outcome that I want. And I want to be more focused on learning as well with more intense stimuli. So even towards the end of this year, I kind of have been doing that. And that's, my training age at this point is insane. I think I started training when I was like 13. I'm 31 now. So 18 years of training age, that's a long time. And performance gains are hard to come by these days, and it takes more training to get better, or at least better training or higher quality training. And as I have less time, that those things kind of move in opposite directions, right? It takes more time. I have less time and I'm older. So, it's harder for me to accumulate more volume just from like a health point of view. So for me, it's finding a setup that works well for getting all of the volume in. I need to sprint. I can't really get away from that too much. I need to have really high intensities. I can't get away from that too much. And I hope that, getting into a new living situation where that benefits me is just taking my environment and streamlining it so that I can get better training in. I want to
Yeah.
have more high quality sessions this year. And I don't want to over jump. I think I've done a good job of that the last couple of weeks, last couple of months, probably even. And I've consistently gotten better. I mean, think about how much do you think my vertical has gone up since the first, think about the outdoor sessions that I had, like the first outdoor session after I rehabbed my knee. What do we think my vertical is probably going up by? Probably like,
4 inches.
yeah, at least maybe more.
Yeah.
That rim was 9.9 and I was missing cuff dunks on it.
Yeah, maybe
So
6. You're probably like, like mid palm. Now you're like a couple inches below your wrist. So
on
yeah,
cuff
probably
dunks,
four to
and it's on a
six.
10-foot rim versus a 9.9 rim. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think so. And in terms of all time best, when it comes to cuffs specifically, I've cuff windmilled. I basically can just do a cuff dunk on 9, 11 and a half, 10 feet any given day when when I was my best.
Yeah.
And I think some people look at the Eppley sessions at Maryland, and I think that rim lowered over time. It's hard to know how high it was because I didn't measure it every time. But either way, I want to see myself. I know for a fact that the 24-hour rims did not lower, and that I was dunking on 9, 11 and a half pretty much every single week. It was soft, but I had some crazy jumps during that time, and I cuff windmilled during that time, and had a lot of crazy throw-ins and big dunks on like higher than 10-foot rims. So, for me, it's right now, I would say I'm close to that potential at the moment. I need a little bit more training volume and intensity and specificity to get back to that, but uh, I think how I'm doing that right now is interesting to me. I'm learning a lot. I don't usually experiment with too many like max effort eccentrics because I never really had the health to do so. But now I'm really healthy, so I've been able to push like crazy on those. And some of the stuff that I use with you, I'm experimenting with myself, and it's been helping a lot. I mean, you've seen it each week, right? Over the
Yeah.
last month, my vertical's probably gone up like 3 inches or so, and it's like
Mhm.
consistently higher. Like my basement is way higher, and you can tell I'm on the cusp of things really kind of clicking for me. So yeah, I would say just being consistent with that and getting back to my all-time best 1 foot without nuking my tendon health because I'm experimenting with too many plyos. That was the big lesson from last year was that plyos they just don't I just don't respond well to that as much anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me. So let's do this for you. What did you learn last year? What were your big goals? Let's say like in terms of business and training and that kind of blend of things. And
Yeah.
then in terms of this year, what you're gonna do to take those
Yeah.
lessons and apply it.
Um, so training wise, last year I jumped the highest I've ever jumped, so that was a big success. Um, I think the failure was in it technically was periodized incorrectly because I got hurt at the time I needed it to not be hurt. Like I was looking back at I made a whole video of like my top 20 dunks, best dunks of the year in order. And looking at the video, I was jumping super high, progressed a lot, and then leading up to when I got hurt right before the summertime, like looking back at those sessions when we were doing the functional overreach, there was like it's funny because looking back at there was a few mistakes. It's like one, the functional overreach in of itself, that's an increase in jump volume. Two, there were a few jump sessions where, for example, there was a session where I low rimmed outside going left, right. Or no, this was when I tested my vertical on the turf. I don't know if you remember that at 24. Then I had another session later that day where I jumped right, left, like in the same day. Another session right before I got hurt in the summer, jumped for like an hour and a half, I think, in the Mac gym. Then we went and played like an hour of volleyball right after. Then like 3 days later, went and had a left right session and then right left volleyball for like an hour. And this was all right before getting hurt. And I was just like, no wonder. I was actually thinking, I was like, there might still be an argument for functional overreach. It's just that my sessions were way too long. And I was going just way too long, way too much jumping, way too much jumping. And then looking at all the other sessions throughout the year, right now my sessions are like 45 minutes to an hour. There was a lot of like hour and a half, 2 hour dunk sessions last year, early on in the year. And
Can I
when you
interrupt?
look, and real quick, when you look at my jumping, it's like almost 1 to 1, like an inverse correlation between how long my sessions are and then how much I'm actually improving. When I'm jumping super high, my sessions are short and my lifts are really high quality. Um, and
That's what
yeah,
I was gonna
what were
say.
you gonna say?
That's basically it. I was like, I
Yeah.
think about you going into dunk camp and kind of elaborate about like your feelings, even the couple days before about testing 51, like what your thoughts were. Do you remember? I do vividly, but do you remember kind of how you were feeling and your confidence level?
Going in this year at dunk camp,
Yeah, in Utah.
not very not confident.
Yeah, it was like
Like,
you were like, I'm not going to test well at all, and I was like,
yeah,
oh shit,
very
something's
not
not
confident.
right.
I am confident when I am strong as hell, basically. I'm strong as
Mhm.
hell and I'm feeling healthy. Um, Now looking back at the year, also, I'm actually glad that I looked back at those videos last night, considering what we're talking about right now. But bro, if you look at even when I was testing 50.5, when I tested, there was another time where I think I tested 49 or 50 at Goldenrod. If you look at how my height checks were looking around that time compared to now, it's not even like I think I'm jumping a legit like 2 to 3 inches higher. My height checks on 9 and 3/4 at Goldenrod are what my height checks are looking now on 10 when I was testing 50. So I'm like looking at that and I'm like, bro, like there's a strong argument I'm jumping 51, 52, like if I were to test at
I
the
think it's
moment.
just it's like the storm brewing thing that we always talk about.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time before you do it.
Yeah.
And, for me as your coach, last year was a structural building time,
Yeah.
and we experimented with some things. And I always
Mhm.
say this, you never really know the timelines in terms of actualizing this stuff. You could look at research and kind of say, "Oh, well, after 2 weeks of unloading," like Indigo Mujika's research, "Oh, well, you're basically at your all-time best." With jump training, I think that there is some transient fatigue that who knows how long it affects you centrally, especially when you're talking about best outcomes in something like jumping where the rate of force development's higher than weightlifting, I think, probably. Higher, I mean, maybe not as high as sprinting, upright sprinting or something like that, but it's the peak forces are insane.
Yeah.
So I think you had these adaptations, and I think that there's probably some just transient fatigue that was masking that, or it could have been central governing because of injuries. But you definitely weren't confident going into Utah. And then I would say we really focused on just getting that after that gauntlet of testing. We focused on just getting you healthy and getting through the summer
Yeah.
because you had all those events. And then it was really like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board probably like maybe October.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're a better product now. We talked the other day about training beyond failure and how that is really important. And I think that you did a really good job of accumulating a lot of good high quality sessions, whether that's because of the belt squat or it's because we just had good periodization that worked well for you, finding options that allowed you to train hard.
Mhm.
That you and I have talked about this before, that it's like that's what is distinctive about you compared to a lot of other people is, and myself too, is like our ability to train hard is almost one to one correlated with our performance in the like current time period or in the future.
Yeah.
And it's true of almost anyone. I think obviously that's
Yeah.
what training. That's why we train. But yeah, I think you made a lot of gains last year, but I don't necessarily think that they were.
It was like inefficient in a way. Like
Yeah, like,
the way
they
I
weren't
went
even
about
like, they weren't necessarily visible, it's
Yeah.
not like you could go in and see your tendon was stiffer or like, it's I think there was too many moving pieces. Yeah, maybe it was inefficient in how, but I think the bigger thing is what we learned.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Learned a lot about my body and about what I respond well to. Like another benefit of watching all those videos is I was seeing all the training because like on the iPhone you zoom out and then you see like August, September, whatever it breaks it down. So I looked at every dunk session and then I was seeing the training that was like around each of those dunk sessions, and it's just like volume and max strength. Even some of the best I jumped was actually when I wasn't in a specifically periodized program. It was when I was doing tendon rehab. Like that point in 10 in rehab when I start moving heavy ass weight and I can like push hard. That's some of the best I jump. Like, and it's just like slow strength turns into max strength, like kind of 6 to 8 rep range going heavy. Like that's some of the best I was jumping
When do you
all
think,
year.
what time period was that?
Recently, like September, October, like coming back from China and then do 10 in rehab.
See, I feel like you're jumping way higher now.
So no, so if you look at that's compared to the like the before that. So if you look at the year, it was like early like January, February was jumping probably 47 to 48. Training was complex. Then we moved into I think like eccentrics, maximum or like volume, eccentrics, isometrics jumping really well. Then functional overreach dropped off a lot. Then it was basically just maintained during the competitive season. Then I came back from that, did the training that we've been doing, and it's just been like literally like this whole
Yeah.
time. Like ever
Yeah.
since September, it's just been like a line upwards.
And this is like what we talked about the other day in that, and I think you and I are both really good about this. We don't take it personally if training isn't working. It's just data, and we're using that to inform other
Yeah.
decisions. And I think that when you're looking at research and you're looking at some of the stimuli that we tried, we did max ISOs last year. We're doing them now. We did max eccentrics last year. We're going to do those soon. We did volume last year. We did intensity last year. We did a
Yeah.
functional overreach. So like we followed all of the themes and laws that are written in the what is it? What's the not archives of the history of the world, but that's like what I'm saying. Like the things
Yeah.
that we know work, and I think that it was not like acutely visible. I think that these chronic adaptations have happened, and you're a better product this year. And this is generally what happens for you. You go from like these periods of training, and you're not your best. You're still great. Don't get me wrong. You're jumping 47 to 50, but you're not jumping 51 or 52, or even a couple of years ago when you tested 50.5 for the first time. There was that year of the same type of thing,
Yeah.
and and then we kind of simplify things at the end of it, and then you end up just jumping crazy high. And it's almost like you start to groove out these new neural patterns in your brain that let you access more muscle power and
Yeah.
tendon stiffness than you ever have, but it's
Yeah.
not actualized in the jumping per se. And
Mhm.
and then you're kind of managing injuries during some of this as well. So then we go to this general approach where it's just like volume intensity, and you jump super well, and it's kind of funny. With Fabian, we're kind of doing something similar at the moment. He's like gone through all of those progressions that you kind of listed out. He went through volume and intensified, and then we did a lot of the max eccentric strength work. And now we're kind of getting out of that fancy stuff, and we're getting more into just volume and intensity, and kind of like, hey, what do you feel works for you? And for you, it's pretty standard. We know we go through these complex periods for like 3 to 6 months, and then like you said, you go through these like load management periods of basically it's just like volume goes
Yeah.
from high to low and intensity goes up, and then it's an 8 month period, and then you're jumping higher than you ever have, right?
Yeah.
And again, we talked about this the other day, but I really think that that just works so well for you. That variety builds a bigger motor for when you do the stuff that and it builds a better product. But it's like maybe you got the wrong fuel in there, maybe your tires aren't perfectly warm, or everything's not tuned
Yeah.
appropriately, but you're moving closer to the goal. And then what you did the last, I don't know, what would you say, like 4 months of just the Prince loop of volume
Yeah.
intensity, is it makes everyone jump acutely insanely high. It didn't work for Nathan actually, but now he's jumping insanely high weeks later, which makes me think it's like the
Yeah.
transient chronic effects of of training for people is different.
Yeah.
For you, it's like volume intensity. When you want to jump high, that's what we need to be doing leading
Mhm.
into like a big competition or testing or
Yeah.
something else. Like, I don't expect you to jump, and we've talked about this. We don't really expect you to jump crazy high as we go into even All-Star weekend, right? Like you'll probably still be jumping really well, but it's not going to be 52, 53. But by the summer, the goal is, hey, as we finish
Yeah.
this stuff up, let's be.
That's my goal. If I were to sum up my goals as far as this year, it's break my vertical jump PR. So at least test a 51. Um, I want to go into the competitive season healthy and jumping in the 50s. Like, so by healthy, like, I don't require long warm up. How I feel right now. If I can feel how I feel now in the summertime when it's time to compete, like I would be more than happy. So that's goal number 2. Strength goals. I want to hit a 405 front squat, like a deep 405 front squat at some point. Uh, I want to belt squat 405, which is funny to say.
I want you to belt squat 500.
Yeah. um, the belt squat, by the way, I just realized I thought about this when you were talking. I think the reason I'm jumping so well is a combination of we know what works well, keeping jump volume low, and then being able to load heavily in the belt squat is freaking huge. Like I can't reach those efforts in with back squatting or half squatting. Anything where the barbell's on my back, I can't. And then front squat, I'm limited.
Why?
What do you mean why?
Why can you not reach those effort levels for the people listening, the viewers?
Oh, I got strong enough to where my back was the limiter. There's just too much weight on my back.
And in front squat, it's your upper back.
And then the front squats is my upper back. The rack position is the limiter. So I think honestly a big theme in 2024 will probably be machines. Like that's that's a way I think in terms of like THP growing as a product is we're implementing machines more. I think as we get older too, specifically because like
Think about me, bro. Think about
yeah,
me.
because a lot of the training, a lot of what THP is like our experiences training ourselves and athletes. And then
And
as we get
research.
yeah, and research, yeah. And as we get older, we're gonna have to find ways to work around things. And I think the training is gonna lend it's gonna be better for older athletes as we get older.
Well, I think what's happened too is like I've always been an advocate of using machines if it is better for the athlete, right?
Yeah.
I used to be very against it when I was in high school or college. I remember my like sophomore year, I had this huge argument with this kid named Noah about like why machines sucked for athletic performances. And he like took more of the middle road, and I used to be very dogmatic at the time. And I later on, after getting more mentoring and coaching and learning, started to realize that machines offer some really good options in terms of training amenities. It allows you to load the muscle at near or beyond failure in performance, not just bodybuilding. And I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think of machines is bodybuilding. But you can do a lot of really good performance based activities, because you can unload the spine and we can
Yeah.
start to work on different tendons and different muscles. And it's training the physiology more so than leaning into this functional movement pattern kind of mindset. And there's nothing wrong with when I say functional, I always say like functional for what? In our case, that's another way of saying specificity. We know that using machine or not using machines can be more specific if you can do it, right? But there are a lot of other benefits to using machines like the hack squat, right? Like the hack squat is centrally, you can get the same loading in terms of your nervous system, I think, on that with crazy heavy loads that you can in a back squat or a belt squat, hand supported belt squat. You can
Yeah.
get the same neural loading, like truly failure.
Dude, it's
On that.
like this workout that I just did on Saturday, I was doing 5x6 last two at 82% on the belt squat. And those last 2 reps for the final sets, the last 2 sets, like the final 2 reps, it's like I'm literally just pushing into the ground as hard as I can with my leg. Like as hard as I possibly can. And then I'm thinking in a back squat, when it gets those final 2 reps, like it ends up being this type of thing. Like you're here and then you shift and then you come up versus in a belt squat or a machine, it's almost like you're forced
You're
in that
locked in,
position,
baby.
and all you can do, there's no way you like, you don't really move your body
There's no
around to
compensatory movement pattern.
yeah, you don't change your movement pattern. The only option you have is press harder. And then when I think about jumping, right? How jumping feels. In jumping, it's not like when there's too much, right? Let's say you have a really high approach speed and your plant leg hits the ground, you're not gonna like shift your hips back to like be able to handle that and then like do like some weird
Well, I
good
think you
morning.
might, but you're gonna feel the consequences. You're gonna jump lower.
Yeah, yeah. Like the only option you have when it comes to jumping is produce more force, and it feels the same. And it's I don't know. It almost it makes me realize I've been saying this a lot, but it's like I can tell when an exercise is helping because it feels specific. It feels like jumping, and that same thing when I was doing the hack squat. Same thing. It's like just press harder. That's your only option, and it feels just like pressing into the ground when you jump. Like when you told me on the height check where you're like try as hard as you can, and I literally in my head I was like approach slow and then just try as hard. It felt like the belt squat or a hack squat or a back squat with perfect technique where it's just like you're just pressing into the ground as hard as you can.
Yeah, I think you've said that a lot, and I sometimes don't. It doesn't resonate with me because it's never how it works for me. Like, I never do an exercise and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's the one." Like,
Yeah.
it just rarely is the case for me personally. But with you, you always have a really good sense of when something's gonna work. But I agree with you, it's like you can you can't cheat a machine a lot of the time. You can cheat a squat, or not cheat. Let's say it's like it's almost like when people say a technical PR versus like an all-time
Yeah.
PR. When your technique just goes to absolute dog shit and you can
Mhm.
still lift the weight. That is a lot less meaningful than when someone, for performance specifically, than when someone maintains range of motion or they have good movement quality. Um, it's like, hey, you did that rep and you did it correctly. And to do that rep, you had to have a lot of force and you had to do it really well, which means when you're in these positions where you need a lot of force and you need to do it well at the right time, it's
Yeah.
going to help. And I think that's the case with a belt squat. And I think that a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, using it has allowed you to just push harder. Like you said, like you think about the isometrics, right? Why do you think that they're working so well right now? Because you can push really hard without your spine feeling like it's going to snap.
Yep.
And I think for you, that's been a major determinant of your success. So
It's
yeah,
funny because it reminds me a lot of the old school strength coaches. Like
what do you mean?
I've heard strength coaches saying, shoot, I can't. It's not gonna be accurate at all because it's been so long. But it's something along like they'll hate certain exercises because like the back is the limiter. Uh, and it's
Like
just like
deadlift?
yeah, 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 like stuff like that. But
I think
um,
I don't know. In general, I just feel like, I mean, you wanna still be able to do that. I don't wanna
thing
shy
is,
away
your
from
back
that.
is still important. Like it
Yeah,
needs to be
you
strong.
still need to be able to, like, do certain things. Like, I definitely still think you need to be able to handle loading in a back squat or a front squat. Like, that's been the
But
staple of your success up to this point. If someone just hopped on the belt squat and tried to do what you do, I don't think they would get even close to the same
I
results.
don't think
I
so
think
either.
I think
It's
what
almost you have to
happened is
earn
you
the
gotta
belt
build
spot.
you gotta earn the belt squat. You gotta earn the hack squat. You gotta earn, like, if unless you go through all of the stages that you went through to be able to do those exercises, like, there's not really a I don't wanna say not a point, but it's just it's not gonna be as effective,
It's like
right?
your
And
silver bullet analogy. Like
it is.
you have a bullet in the chamber, and if you use it early, then kind of like screwing yourself over in the long run.
Yep, I definitely think so. Well, I feel like this is a good place to kind of close things off. If you guys are interested in getting coaching, go to teachmestrength.com. Again, we love what we do. Like I said earlier, the price point is unbeatable for what you get. Isaiah and I, on a quick anecdote, I was trying to help Andy. Andy was trying to help me program, and I was trying to tell her what to do. And she knows about exercise science and about training, and she could not for the life of her figure it out. So I just want to say, like, when we go in and we do these programs, I forget how complex it is sometimes, and I forget, not to toot our own horn, but how good it is and how individualized and how specific it is. It really is. And I want to encourage you guys to kind of lean into the training and trust the process. And if you're not on the training, I would encourage you to get on it. There's no product better for tendon health, for joint health, for performance. And we're always pushing the boundaries of what is the best. And we always want to try to find objectively what is the best. Not what's going to get us paid the most to say what's the best, but what is actually the best. And we let our results speak for themselves. So thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, happy New Year. We'll see you guys in 2025.
Oh, and it's 40% off right now.
Until when?
2 days, I think.
Oh, no. 2 days left, boys and girls. All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.